page. Welcome everyone to the 2025 ARPA Organization Grant webinar. Today we're going to be going over the details pertinent to this funding program. It is open to nonprofit 501c3 arts organizations located within the Arts Foundation service area. And this grant program is meant to support jobs in the arts sector and support arts organizations in keeping their doors open to their communities within Southern Arizona. Fiscally sponsored organizations are not eligible to receive funding in this program. And we can go over some of those details. So you have some overview information on our page. You have the webinar registration information here as well. If you click on guidelines, it'll open this handy dandy page. It is a PDF document that walks you through all the requirements in order to apply for this grant program. So the due date is September 12th, 11:59 p.m. Arizona time. Here's your table of contents. And we're going to start with the guidelines at a glance. Basically, this is meant to give you quick access to the most salient details of the grant program. It is open to Southern Arizona nonprofit 501c3 arts organizations and tribal nations. You may request up to $15,000 in funding for very specific things. The funding period is May 1st, 2024. So a note, right? We are now in July, so the program is slightly retroactive, and you can request funding for activities that will take place up to February 28th, 2025. Rescue plan funds are intended to support really specific operating costs. One of them is artist contracts. So if your organization hires and pays artists to do anything related to supporting your organization's programming, those are all eligible costs. If you have staff and you have salary costs associated with those positions, you may request funding to support those positions. Again, if you hired an artist on May 2nd, if you hired, a staff person back on May 2nd, 2024, all of those costs are eligible up through February 28th, 2025. The funders for this program are the National Endowment for the Arts and the City of Tucson, with support from the American Rescue Plan Act. On our guidelines, you have a link back to the landing page. There's a link to the application portal and submittable, which we'll be looking through shortly. The application period, this grant launched July 18th. And again, it closes September 12th, 2024 at 11:59 p.m. Arizona time. Please don't wait till September 12th. Our offices do close at 5 p.m. After that time, we are not available to help you, and no late applications will be accepted for this grant program. The review criteria of artistic excellence and artistic merit. This is how panelists will assess your application materials. The staff reviews every application that is submitted to ensure that it adheres to, that it is eligible to be sent forward for panel review, but our panel is actually comprised of your colleagues. And so applications are not assessed internally by staff. The first review criteria is the potential to have an immediate impact on the arts workforce. The potential to serve, reach, hire, and or support individuals whose opportunities to experience the arts are limited by ethnicity, by economics, by geography, or disability. The ability to carry out an award as shown by the agreement of the budget and other resources with the goals and requirements of this funding opportunity. The significance to the arts and culture mission and core work of the applicant organization, and the evidence of affirmatively advancing equity, civil rights, racial justice, and equal opportunity as part of the organizational culture. The narrative questions are really meant to get you to describe how your application is addressing each of the evaluation criteria. So the first question we ask is, tell us how you plan to use the funds and how this will have an immediate equitable impact on the local arts workforce during the funding period. So again, this criteria is responding, this question is responding to the first criteria. The second question we'll ask you to answer in your narrative is to tell us how your programs have the potential to serve, reach, hire, and or support individuals whose opportunities to experience the arts are limited by ethnicity, economics, geography, or disability. We will also ask you to tell us about your ability to carry out the financial and equitable responsibilities of this award, as shown by the alignment of the budget you submit and other resources with the goals and requirements of this funding opportunity. We'll ask you to tell us about your arts and culture mission and the core work of your organization. We want panelists to get to know who you are as an organization. And we'll ask you to tell us how your organization has normalized or affirmatively advanced equity, civil rights, racial justice, and equal opportunity in its organizational culture and public programming. The last question we'll ask is for you to also provide a brief summary of how the COVID-19 pandemic affected your organization's operations. And you can outline changes to programs, to revenue, personnel, facilities, etc. The reason why we're asking this question is because these are rescue funds meant to support organizations recover from the impacts of COVID-19. Okay, so materials that you'll have to prepare are your narrative. We ask in your narrative, I would suggest that you number these questions so that the panelists can easily correlate the evaluation criteria with the narrative questions you're answering. Let's say you decided to answer question 4 after question 1, and then you answer question 1, question 4, question 2, question 3. That's totally fine. If you number them, then panelists know where to look for information. So you'll prepare your narrative. We'll ask for some budgetary information. You will, let's see. Sorry. Okay. You'll have to secure a SAM unique entity identifier number. The SAM UEI number is provided through the sam.gov website. It is an external website. It is required of all grantees to have this number. You don't need it to apply, but we ask that you begin that registration process, if you don't have one, as soon as possible, because in order to receive funding, you have to have this number. We can't actually issue a letter of agreement without it. And let's say you were recommended for funding and you were unable to secure the number by the deadline that we have to disperse all the funding. If you don't have that number, unfortunately, we're not able to offer any extension. So please, if you don't have a SAM unique entity identifier, get that right away. On the resources, there is this handy dandy link. It is the 3rd bullet point. Click on it and it'll take you to the sam.gov website so you can begin that registration for your organization. We also ask that you provide minimum 1 digital image as cover art for the application. You will be asked to provide your tax form 990 or 990EZ for your most recently filed taxes. We need to certify that your organization is current and A-okay with submitting your taxes. You will also need to provide an IRS affirmation letter of nonprofit certification. This is to certify that your organization is a registered 501c3 nonprofit. The first section of the application flow, and again, we'll actually go through the application so that you can see what it looks like, is eligibility. This will walk you through questions to make sure that if your organization is not eligible for some reason, it won't, it'll let you know so that you don't spend, your time writing an application that you might not be eligible for. Then we'll walk you through the organization profile. We'll ask about your organization service and the activity type. The fourth section is the actual narrative. We'll walk you through a community alignment series of questions. We'll ask for your finances and then the disclosure and signature. These resources are really meant for you to familiarize yourself with things if you haven't received federal funding before, even as a sub-grantee. Again, this link, which I'll click right now, will walk you through how to get a SAM unique. Oh, I'm glad I'm clicking. Okay, we will fix this link so that you have it available to you. It's really meant to walk you through the unique entity identifier number. Let me make a note. Okay. And then this is a webinar we've offered to the last cohort of grantees. You do need to complete a 504 self-evaluation as a requirement for the final report. So only grantees need to do this. Applicants don't. Okay, this link is working. So there's like a webinar you can access to support you in doing that. This link, fingers crossed. Okay, this is the IRS website where you can get that letter of certification if you do not have one. This is my contact information if you need to get a hold of me. Okay, this is the overview of the grant program. So the 2025 ARPA Organization Grants are, again, funded by the NEA and the City of Tucson via the American Rescue Plan Act with additional support from Pima County and the Arizona Commission on the Arts. These are meant to help the field recover from the devastating impacts, economic impacts of the COVID-19 pandemic. And it is a 3-year initiative that aims to support the equitable rebuilding of arts economies in the borderlands and strengthen civic participation. Let's see. Let's move through the timeline. Okay, so again, the application is due September 12th, 11:59 p.m. The review period starts Friday, September 13th. This is the internal staff technical review. And it concludes November 20th, 2024. This is when panelists review and score all the applications. Then their funding recommendations are sent forth to our board, and the board ratifies those funding recommendations. And then we will begin the notification process and the awarding process for grantees between Monday, November 25th and December 5th, 2024. Now, the reason why this spans a couple of weeks is because we will be sending grantee letters of agreement and also requesting information from grantees to complete the awarding process. The funding period is May 1st, 2024, right? So a couple months ago, to February 28th, 2025. A final report will be due April 30th, 2025. So award amount, you can request $5,000, $10,000, or $15,000 for eligible expenses. No cash match is required. Please note that the final determination of the award amount will be made based on volume of eligible applications and available funds. While applicants may request up to $15,000, final awards may be less than requested. We hope they won't, but they might have to. We can't predict who all will apply. And of course, all awarded funds must be expended within the funding period. So who can apply for this grant program? Tax-exempt nonprofit 501c3 or charitable organizations that are in good standing with the IRS, and federally recognized Indian tribal governments are also eligible to receive funds sub-awarded through this NE award. Organizations must reside and provide services in counties and regions south of the Gila River. This includes Pima, Santa Cruz, and Cochise counties, and southern portions of Pinal, Yuma, Greenlee, Graham, Maricopa County, and or sovereign nations of Action Indian Community, sovereign nation of the Cocopas, Quechan tribe of the Fort Yuma Indian Reservation, Gila River Indian Community, Pascua Yaqui tribe, the Honahatom Nation, and San Carlos Apache Nation. Okay, at least 1 year of artistic or cultural production must have been underway for all organizations. If your organization was formed and started making work, producing in March of 2024, you are not eligible to apply for funding. You need at least 1 year proven track record. Over 51% of the applicants' programming and budget must be dedicated to the arts. Previous grantees must be current in all reporting to Arts Foundation if that program has closed. Grantees will be required to create a profile for the Arts and Culture Directory within 1 month of receiving their award letter. Grantees must have an active SAM unique entity identifier number in order to accept the award and receive funds. In Appendix B, we'll have more information and instructions on that. Grantees will be required to submit a W-9 IRS form. That's that 990-EZ form. Grantees will be asked to create a Bill.com account so that we can remit payment. This is a free account. You won't be asked to pay. There is no percentage that is charged. It is free, and grantees will receive an invitation from our accounting team, our finance team, Momentum Tax, and that triggers that free account. So don't set it up. If you apply and you don't have one, don't set it up. Grantees will receive an invitation from our team. Grantees will also be required to complete a risk assessment by submitting that self-certification, that IRS self-certification letter to ensure that the organization is not disbarred, suspended, nor have any other exclusions or disqualifications. Grantees will be required to provide documentation of good standing of IRS determination as a 501c3, and then financial information from 2019 to the present. And you'll see those questions in the application. And then grantees will be required to disclose in writing any potential conflicts of interest that may be present when conducting funded activities. You will be required to submit your final report. You'll be required to comply with all national policies, including the completion of a Section 504 self-assessment and appointing a Section 504 staff coordinator. If you only have one staff, this can be the person who is a coordinator. If your organization is entirely run by volunteers, it can be the person who is applying for the grant. And the reason why there are so many requirements is because we are stewarding federal funding, and we're just adhering to our funders' requirements. So who is not eligible? The following entities are not eligible as recipients for this funding. The list is not exhaustive. If you don't quite fit within the parameters of who is eligible and you have a question, please don't hesitate to reach out and ask if you are not on this list, but you're not on the list above either. So who is not eligible? For-profit entities, fiscally sponsored organizations, religious institutions or religious groups sponsored organizations whose primary purpose is the religious socialization of individuals or whose arts programming exists as part of religious sermons or services, political organizations, private and non-profit schools, except for those whose sole purpose is arts education. If you have a question about that, please reach out or ask at the end of this webinar. Any division or department of municipal, county, state, or federal government, including elementary schools, middle schools, high schools, colleges, universities, and school districts. A waiver to this criterion may be granted to a 501c3 arts organization that is deemed the sole provider of arts programming in their rural community or tribal nation if they meet all the other eligibility requirements. Okay, eligible expenses. What can you ask $15,000 to fund? Okay, I'll answer questions at the end. They're popping up, so I want to answer, but I want to get through the content. Okay, eligible expenses. So I just want to be really honest with you that we're going to be requesting quite a bit of information from grantees in order to disperse the funding. So funds from the award can only be used to cover the following eligible costs incurred between the funding period dates. Due to the nature of financial reporting requirements, it is advisable to focus expenditures on artist contracts or artist salaries. We found that these were the easiest expenditures for applicants, for grantees to really track. So priority eligible expense is artist contracts. These are expenses related to artists and or contractual personnel to support the services they provide for specific activities of the grantee organization's day-to-day operations. So this could be you hired an artist to give a workshop, you hired an artist to teach art classes, you hired an artist to redesign your website, things of that nature. Secondary eligible expenses are salary support, full or partial, for one or more staff positions. Timesheets will be required. So for example, if you have an accountant and you pay them to do your taxes, file all your forms. You have a creative director, you have yourself. If you are paid staff and you need to subsidize your salary in full or partial way, you can request funding for that. Facilities costs are also supported. Now, this can only be rent and utilities. So you can pay for your electric bill, your water bill, you can pay for your rent, things like that. If you have questions about that, please reach out. And then costs associated with project-related health and safety supplies for staff and or visitors or audiences, like PPE, cleaning supplies, hand sanitizer, etc. There is a list of unallowable expenses under Appendix A. I strongly urge you to peruse it if you have questions. Now, can you request $15,000 to pay your artist? Yes. Can you request, instead of that, $15,000 for salary support? Absolutely. Whatever will be easiest for you to prove in terms of the expenditures, that is what we recommend. You will not be judged or assessed based on whether you're paying artists or you're paying your staff or you're requesting funding for facilities. This is really meant for us to track how you're expending the funding. Panelists will not assess it. Mortgage expenses are not eligible. Only rent and utilities. Okay. Okay, financial record management. Please know you will be asked to keep records for 4 years from the date of the final report. So keep your records, your financial records. Okay, how to apply? We will actually go through it together. So I'm going to skip the section. Review process. As I mentioned, after that initial technical review, a panel of artists, arts administrators, community advocates, and cultural workers representing geographic, discipline, and ethnic diversity will review, deliberate, and score the materials all of you submit. And based on the eligibility, based on the completeness, on the clarity, and panelists will assess all of those materials based on the review criteria. Panel recommendations will then be submitted to the Arts Foundation Board of Directors for formal approval and authorization. Then we'll reach out to folks and we will proceed with the awarding process. Now, I do want to mention one thing. Sometimes our grant programs can be quite competitive, and the difference between an excellent application that answers all the questions, that meets the evaluation criteria and addresses all of those questions really closely, and an application that is good, but maybe left panelists with a few questions, can be really slim. So please know that we are not judging the work your organization is doing. We are only evaluating the materials that you submit based on the evaluation criteria for that specific grant program. A note on equity. Here at the Arts Foundation for Tucson and Southern Arizona, we have an equity strategy that aims to identify and eliminate barriers that have prevented undercapitalized groups full participation in the agency's programs, and to strengthen equity, diversity, and inclusion in the arts and culture sector for all communities of Southern Arizona. We are committed to just and equitable distribution of funding. To that commitment, the Arts Foundation Tucson and Southern Arizona will consider equity and geographic parity as part of our decision-making, and will work to expand the reach of this relief opportunity to a broad, diverse community of arts organizations. So we talked about the criteria already, which is all here again. There are some assistance that you can request. So we're hosting an online information session now. We offer bilingual consultations. English is actually my second language, so if you need some help in Spanish, feel free to reach out. And you can schedule a bilingual consultation if you need it by clicking on that link. You can also request a feedback session if you need it, or if you have questions. You can always schedule a meeting with me using this link. You can call. My number is right here. You can send an email as well. Okay. So we've come to the application questions section. I actually want to walk us through the actual application. So let me go back to our website real quick. So let's say I'm here on our landing page. I scroll down, I've read all the materials, I prepared everything I needed to, and I want to start my application. If I click on apply, great questions. I have a burning desire to start answering them. but I really want to get through this. Okay, so I'm going to arrive at this list, right? Here it is. And this is, you're going to look for the name of the application. And then you're going to realize, ooh, there are all these other opportunities. Here's the Arts Directory application link. If you already have an Arts Directory profile, you don't need to complete another one, but it is required of all our grantees. So here's the 2025 ARPA Organization Grant. I'm going to click on Submit Application. And I come to this section right here. It tells me when it's due, September 12th, 11:59. It has our website is linked, and then my email. So it's going to initially walk you through that. This is the applicant's personal information. It is really the account holder. Your organization might have several folks who have access to the submittable account. If I click on that, this starts walking me now through the actual application section. So, okay, you'll notice that there's only 2 questions right here. The application will start unfolding as you type your answers. Okay, so what city is your organization based? Do you have a 501c3? Let's say I don't. Actually, I don't. I'm a practicing artist. Okay, so if I click on no, then it's gonna, if there's a question on your eligibility, then you're gonna get this no. The answer provided does not meet eligibility criteria. If you get this, then either you're definitely not eligible or you need to reach out to me and then I can help you figure out if you are eligible or not. But let's say I do run a 501c3 and I definitely serve Southern Arizona. And my primary mission is to explicitly produce, present, teach, serve, or preserve through arts and culture. I am again, if I click no, then it's gonna stop me. If I click yes, then it'll open the next question. Do the arts comprise over 51% of the organization's public programming and budget? Programming history. Do I have at least 1 year of art history and culture programming within Southern Arizona? Yes. Have I received a grant before? Yes. Did I do my final report? No. Then I'm not eligible. If you have questions about this, let me know. But let's pretend I have not. This is the first time I've received a grant. Then it'll open section 2, which is your organizational profile. Now, this is your organization's legal name. This should be the same name that's on your tax form. This should be the same name that's on your SAM unique entity identifier number in sam.gov. My organization doing business as, it can be different, but here we definitely need your legal name. The mailing address for your organization, what county? Do you serve a specific tribal nation? And this is really, if you have a specific relationship to that community. It's not a requirement. You can say no and it'll allow you to continue. Your the website URL, your social media handle, your cover photo, your tax ID number, your SAM unique entity identifier. You'll notice there isn't a red asterisk. That is because if you do not have a SAM UI number, you can leave this blank. You should leave it blank. And then you can go to sam.gov and start your registration immediately. The primary contact name and information of the person that we will be reaching out to. Your preferred communication method. Your Arizona State Legislative District. Now, you might not know what it is. If you click on this link, it'll open up a map. And right now, it'll open up a map and you can plop in your address and it'll tell you what your district is. This is required. Please fill this out. We need it for our reporting purposes. The U.S. Federal Congressional District, same thing. Here's a handy link for you to look it up. If you are within the city of Tucson, please look up your City of Tucson ward. Again, we serve communities outside City of Tucson. We serve a broader region. If your organization does not reside and provide services within the City of Tucson, you can click outside of Tucson city boundaries. And then that takes you to section 3, which is your organization, service, and activity type. We are asking that you provide a brief program summary in 2 or 3 sentences, clearly describe the specific arts programming you would like us to support and state why the programming is important. So let's say you are requesting funding for maybe not artist contracts, but staff. If I were requesting funding for my staff position, then I would list all the grant programs that I'm administering for our communities. And that's the programming that the staff person is going to undertake within the funding period. So we asked for a super brief summary right here. This is your organization's mission statement, the year your organization was incorporated or formed, the date when your organization began providing arts and culture-based programming in Southern Arizona. We ask if your organization has been in existence and operational since 2019, before the pandemic. Again, keep in mind, this is rescue funding. So we will ask you questions about how your organization was impacted by COVID-19. If your organization experienced financial loss or hardship, the percentage of arts-based programming in a typical year based on your budget expenses. If you click this, then you'll get this answer. So your budget has to be 51% or more has to be dedicated to arts and culture programming. And then this really just asks about the size of your organizational budget. This is for internal tracking purposes only. We ask that you identify the primary discipline that is most relevant to your organization. And we ask if funded activities will affect historic properties or districts as described in the guideline. And then there's a beautiful legal note here for you to reference. Okay. Section 4 then starts with asking you those narrative questions. You can submit a written narrative, so you can type it out. You could choose to narrate your video, your narrative as a video, and you can upload a link if you would like, or you can upload the file. The maximum length of that video has to be 7 minutes or less. It corresponds to how fast you would narrate 1,200 words. And your video will not be assessed for the quality of the production. You can upload 5 optional work samples to provide visual context to your organization's arts programming. This will not be evaluated by the panelist. You can provide your image descriptions here. And that's it. This takes you to community alignment. Now here we're gonna ask you questions about the kind of work that your organization is doing in communities. So community and mission alignment indicate if the organization's primary mission and programming is explicitly dedicated to centering a specific cultural community, whether BIPOC, communities living with disabilities, rural residents, refugees, migrant communities, communities seeking asylum, communities experiencing poverty, gender-specific services, LGBTQAI+ communities, specific generations, if you do creative aging or you work with youth, veteran services, additional social identities, or your applicant organization, mission and services are not primarily dedicated to a specific cultural community. You can click that and you're fine. You can continue advancing. And I think I can click multiple here. Yeah, okay. Okay. Leadership and mission alignment. Does 51% of the organization's leadership, board members, CEO, program directors, organizers, identify and reflect the communities identified in question 1? Workforce and mission alignment. Multilingual services, we are asked to report this out, and so this is why we ask it. The answer can be 0. You might provide no. Now it's asking me because I clicked something. Okay. We're required to ask, and so that's why we're asking. You can click no. There's no repercussion. Section 6 is finances. So this is when we're going to ask you about the financials of your organization. Fiscal year start and end dates. Okay, some organizations are in a calendar year. Their fiscal year starts January 1st and ends December 31st. Our arts organization, right, the Arts Foundation for Tucson and Southern Arizona, our fiscal year starts July 1st and ends June 30th. And so the reason why we're asking about these dates is so that we know what you mean by your year. So just enter, you can enter those dates here. If you don't know what they are, your financial officer in your organization will know. We asked for what was your income in fiscal year 21? What were your expenses in fiscal year 21? Same for 22, for 23. And then what is your budgeted income for fiscal year 24? Some of you might not be done, right? Some of you finished on June 30th, 2024. Some of you are going to finish December 31st. And then here we ask you to select an award amount that you are requesting. You have 3 choices: 5,000, 10,000, 15,000. Now, does selecting 5,000 make you more likely to receive this award? No, it does not. We don't assess we don't evaluate how much money you're requesting. If you're a larger organization and you need 15,000, that's what you select. If you are a smaller organization and you have really financial capacity to administer only up to 5,000, then you can select that. Eligible expenses are artist contracts, salary support, facilities costs associated with project-related health and safety supplies. Now, if I click on salary support, then it's going to ask you, how much money do you want for that? Because you can request 10,000 for salary support and 5,000 for artist contracts. Again, you can also just request 15,000 to pay artists. It's up to you. We just ask you to add it up. It needs to tally whatever you selected here, whatever award amount you selected. Okay. We ask you to upload your organization's most current budget. We ask you to upload your 2023 tax form 990 or 990EZ. We ask you to upload your IRS affirmation letter of nonprofit certification. And then we come to the disclosure and signature. We ask you if you can certify that you do not discriminate. We ask if you would like to grant us permission to utilize your media. It's a media release form. And we only do this to promote you and to talk about the funding we administer in our communities. You can say no and still receive this award. Panelists don't see the section. We ask how you found out about the grant program, just so that we can continue to invest in whatever form of outreach we're doing. And then we ask if you're interested in a specific arts opportunity so we can follow up with you. You can also just say nothing now, thank you. We ask that you acknowledge that you're certifying what you're submitting is true to the best of your knowledge. We ask for the contact, the authorized organization representative. This can be different than the person submitting the application. Please note, the email you provide that is attached to your profile, that is where you're gonna receive the automatic notifications from Submittable. So if amirobles@gmail.com submitted this application, all of the Submittable will use that email to receive, confirmation that your application was received. If Gabriela.Munoz@gmail.com, those are not our emails, is the person who is the authorizer, like I'm responsible for this, for providing all of the follow-up materials. This is where you put the information. The title and role, this is really important, the financial authorizer. We need to know who should receive that grant contract, right? That letter of agreement. Maybe that's our CEO, adrianagallego@gmail.com. Then that is whose information goes here. She will be the signatory for the letter of agreement. That's not her. And then you can either save a draft, right? Or you can submit your application. So you can work at it in stages. And then when you do, you receive an email confirmation. Okay,